Hey everybody, my name is REDRUP and you're listening to the It's Not a Phase podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by the lovely chaps in Puppy to talk about their second album, Pure Evil. We also get into the thick of it about writing and recording an album during lockdown, signing to Rude Records, their tongue-in-cheek and playful homages to metal, making their own stage props, and loads more. Before we get started, let's cover off the boring stuff. If you enjoy this episode and would like to support the podcast, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review wherever you're listening to this. We also have a Patreon, where everyone gets access to each episode a week earlier than everyone else, a Discord community, and a merch store too. You can also follow and reach out to me on social media. All of the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And with all of that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by all three of the guys in Puppy. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Pretty good, man. Yeah, very happy to be here having a nice chat.
So you've got your second album coming out, Pure Evil. Where would you say the new record picks up from your debut, The Goat?
I think, quite a lot of time sort of has elapsed. When we recorded the Goat, there was even a bit of a delay between recording it and putting it out, right, guys? We recorded it in like 2018, maybe? Am I imagining that?
It was a long gestation period, wasn't it? Yeah, it feels like there was some...
It wasn't even recorded in one go either. There was a delay between recording it and recording it.
Oh, that's true, yeah. So, like, I think from a writing perspective, there's been a lot of time that's kind of that's elapsed. Yeah, I don't think we massively thought about the previous album when doing the new one. We were just kind of trying to be in the moment, I suppose. Yeah. I think probably the main difference, I'd say, is the way we wrote and recorded it, which was obviously over lockdown, and we did it in sort of our own studio. So we weren't on the clock or anything, and it was very much, between lockdowns and stuff, we were going in and writing and sending each other music and recording bits where we could. So it became this quite kind of like sort of our version of a studio album, I guess. I think The Goat was very much written in a practice room, and we nailed the songs and went in there. And this was us kind of going in and trying bits out, and then putting stuff down, picking stuff up. It gave us a lot more time and room to kind of explore different elements of the band, I think.
So do you think that kind of aided this record? Having that time and space, I guess COVID kind of afforded for you.
I think it affected it. It's weird. I don't know if it's like good or bad. It's just kind of like, I think the circumstance definitely informed what it became, and I think we're all very proud of what that is. I think there's always been a sort of like with our previous album and our EPs, there's always been sort of a theme, or we've gone in with sort of some kind of idea of what we wanted to do. And with this one, it was, we were like, let's record it ourselves. Let's hang out in the studio. Let's kick ideas around. Let's record, even if we're unsure about a song or whatever, let's record it. Let's see how it sounds.
I found it a very liberating way to work. And I think, as Chuck says, I'm not sure if it's necessarily a positive influence. I mean, hopefully it is, but that definitely then sort of shaped the way the album came together. I think we maybe having a little bit more space and a little bit more time to explore different ideas and go a little bit off piece. We did, often in a terrible direction, it ended up really bad, and we chose not to do that. Sadly, my reggae percussion instrumentals weren't used on this one.
Maybe next time. Maybe next time.
That's what they keep saying, but still haven't done it. No, but I think as a result, you get a slightly more diverse end product. I think this is an album where we were really able to like indulge the sort of maybe slightly, said this before, but the contradictory influences that we have, the seemingly kind of contradictory influences. And it was really nice to be able to be like, maybe this works next to this actually, and we can kind of push that. I think that's kind of what Puppy are about a little bit.
And you fully explored what Puppy were about with the second album.
That's it.
That's the tagline, baby.
Billy was in particular, I think, was really good at having a sort of a bird's eye view of the songs. Once they're all done, like I think we were very much in a good place in terms of getting excited about a song and recording it, and and just ending up with like a bunch of material, some kind of half finished, some finished, and we were just kind of going down each rabbit hole sort of as it came, really, and getting excited about being able to like live in the song and not worry as much about, like Billy said, what works the next. And I think me personally, I got to the point where I was like, I don't fucking know anymore. We've recorded all these songs, they're all really cool. And then I think Billy had a very good bird's eye view of stuff, and in terms of sequencing the album and stuff, he worked very hard on that. And yeah, it's lovely, man. I think it's got a real nice kind of, when I say narrative, not, there's not like a concept behind it or anything, but it's got a nice flow to it. And I think it works. It's like a nice combination of, being stuff that's maybe quite disparate, but all feeling like it's coming from the same place,
I think oddly, it also feels maybe like one of the kind of most holistic thing that we've done, as in holistic, not in the medicinal sense. It's all about
acupuncture,
yoga. It's very yogic. No, I think it just feels, even though there are these disparate elements and we've gone down these weird rabbit holes and off piece, as we've said, I do think there is a continuity to it that is really nice. It feels like there's a narrative to the album, I think. And I think part of that was the time that we had a little bit of extra time just to think about how things would come together at the end. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, one of the songs in there, and one of the singles so far, is the song The Kiss. And I believe you said that was originally from one of the sessions from the previous album, which is how, obviously it's been brought into this record now. What kind of changed with that track between then and now as we hear it, for it to kind of see as it is on Pure Evil?
Well, I think when we did the Goat, because we were in a studio and stuff, we were being way more, I don't know, not critical of the work, but like, we can't track something and see how it sounds. We haven't got the time or space to do that. And I think The Kiss was always one of those songs that we thought was a really good song. But then when we were putting the songs together for the Goat, maybe we felt like it didn't fit, or I'm not sure. It just kind of was one of the songs that was kicking around that we'd always kind of resend to each other and be like, oh man, this song was really cool. Like when we had the demo. And I think, again, because we had the time, we had the space to do it, we just laid down. We'd always wanted to hear a version of it that didn't have like garage band drums. So we decided to just record it. Pretty much instantly, we were all just like, actually, this is really something.
It was actually quite a late addition, I think. We'd already recorded quite a lot, and we were sort of tinkering with the arrangements of a few different songs. And I think, we were going through all demos that Jock had sent around. Like, there's probably a lot of them quite a few years ago. And then there was a whole pool of stuff that was very, very new. And we kept going back to that one. But I seem to remember we were like, we could do this one. And it turned out really good. Yeah, that was a good instance of kind of being able to experiment a little bit and it not ending terribly.
It was a fun one to record as well. Like, because we're very much, novice engineers and producers. So we were just kind of working out as we went. But like, we were, layering up acoustic guitars on there and having a bit more kind of studio like fun with it, I think. I think at one point we wanted the album to be more ambitious in that respect. Like we wanted to get all this like mad stuff in. There was one song that we wrote for the album that didn't end up on it. That was like, it sounded like a James Bond theme.
Oh yeah.
That we were like, we'll get a string section, we'll get all this mad shit. But it was obviously during COVID, which made all that stuff hard anyway. And also we didn't know anyone who, played violins. that went in the bin.
Well, you can put that to one side from when they asked you to do the theme song for the new James Bond film.
Well, we thought we were obsessed with the idea that it was really funny to just release your own Bond theme, having not been asked. So that was the notion. But unfortunately, the film came and went. So whenever they announce the next Bond, maybe we'll drop that. We'll drop that fire as well.
Was there many other songs from previous sessions from from either the Goat or your EPs that kind of wheedled their way into this record, or was the rest of it kind of fresh material that you'd written?
I don't think so. Maybe the odd like germ of an idea, but not really. No, and that's certainly not any finished songs.
Yeah, I feel like maybe a couple of riffs or like if just a tiny little bridge. Being like, we never used that. That kind of can make sense then maybe. But no, there was just The Kiss that what was it called before?
Witching Hour.
Witching Hour. See, I like the title. Witching Hour. I liked that.
I like that. Yeah, I didn't. Which is why we changed it. No, I think that was the thing. Actually, we wrote new lyrics for it and stuff like that, and kind of tried to recontextualize it a bit.
The lyrics were better before.
Oh yeah.
And a very controversial lyric that got removed, sadly. Not controversial in a problematic sense, just controversial amongst ourselves.
Right.
Actually,
I was tucked away doing the demo, and as I often do, just don't have the kind of guiding influence of Billy and Will to tell me when something's terrible. So in the original version of the song, it had the lyric "Wicked Jamboree," which Billy and Will immediately picked up on. We were like, maybe that's the reason the song didn't get used actually for the goat, because they were like, you're not fucking getting up there and singing about a wicked jamboree.
That's one of the most internally one of the most iconic puppy things. I think we still reference wicked jamborees. I'd never heard the word jamboree used outside of like a fucking sign in a park or something, you know,
or a scout meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it was a festival for scouts.
It is the jamboree. Yeah. I mean, that wasn't what I was singing about, but maybe it was. I don't know where my head was at that point.
You're kind of an evil scoutmaster.
When I hear that song, or when I play that song, that lyric is still what plays in my head. I'll never
Wicked
lose.
Jamboree.
Wicked Jamboree.
Yeah. In fact, the real fans singing along to the song should hopefully hear this podcast and replace the lyrics with Wicked Jamboree whenever possible.
Mm-hmm. By which we mean every lyric in the song. So just Wicked Jamboree, just repeated for the 4 minutes.
Yeah,
maybe not even to the tune of the song. Just
shouting over it, screaming it.
Yeah.
Get some Wicked Jamboree merch, and then album number 3. Call that.
Actually, yeah, that would be. I mean, making T-shirts that just say Wicked Jamboree.
That should be the name of the tour. Fuck Tour Evil. Wicked Jamboree. 2022. Let's go.
So you kind of talked about, obviously, as it did with every other band and artist, how COVID kind of impacted this record and stuff. Because I think you started writing the records at the start of 2020 when things really started like kicking off over here.
Yeah, we had some bits and bobs. I think we'd recall. Yeah, we had some ideas and we were kind of kicking them around. We'd just come off touring at the back of 2019. So to be fair, kind of in terms of like how it affected bands, we were already in our heads. We were like, okay, well, so we're not going to play live for a little bit. We'll go away and record and write. So when COVID hit, it's not like we had like plans that were cancelled really, maybe a couple of festivals and stuff that got moved. But generally speaking, we know bands that had like albums coming out in March 2020, which is obviously like brutal. So we were lucky in that respect. But yeah, I mean, obviously we all had a lot more time on our hands. We were just kind of sending stuff around to each other. And yeah, we had, I think, studio time booked or were very close to, but then yeah, it just became hard. People couldn't commit to it. People studios were closing down, all sorts. And it felt like we were sort of at the mercy of the world a little bit in a sort of and it was quite frustrating because the one thing that you maybe want to do to distract you from all the shit that's going on, and the one thing that can make you feel like happy and positive and like you're creating something, was sort of out of our hands.
Are you referring to ice skating?
Ice skating, yes. Yeah, exactly. We had to build our own ice skating rig in the studio to keep our spirits up. But yeah, so that's kind of what led us the decision to sort of turn our rehearsal space into a studio. Just so we were like, well, you know, at least this is all in our hands, and at least we can spend this time writing and recording. We don't have to rely on other people or what's going on. So it was a nice way of kind of like taking back a bit of control and being able to build our own little world to kind of weather the storm.
So do you think obviously at the time it's, you know, COVID was shit, to put it in.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, do you think it kind of benefited you guys as a band in terms of, you know, having to create this studio, and also you had more time on your hands to work on this new record?
I think in that respect, that was sort of a positive, but and I think we all did enjoy that process. But I think the thing that was hard is not knowing. I mean, obviously, like early on with COVID, it was like, well, really, no one knew what the world was going to look like for the next year to 5 years. Like it was a real, it was just a bit of an open book in terms of what was going to happen. So we didn't even really know when we would play live again, like if any of that mattered. There was some, I guess, a bit of sort of existential kind of like the world's on fire, and we care about, you know, whether a guitar solo is good enough. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of dumb. So there were ups and downs in that respect.
We were putting out the last single from our last EP around the time that happened, Powder Blue. We put that out like in April or
Did we really?
Yeah, because we changed we put it was like a performance video, and we kind of added this, in retrospect, maybe slightly dramatic. I don't know. We basically, yeah, that's what we added those subtitles, kind of addressing the fact that it seemed kind of silly to be trying to make this big rock performance video in the context of all this stuff happening.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Yeah, I forgot about that. So that was a strange one.
It's difficult, I guess, because there are bands who are intensely serious and uplifting and empowering. I'm trying to think, or bands who are kind of earnest and they're about helping people and making people kind of like better people and stronger and shit. I imagine like Coldplay and POD probably got together and like, what could we do to improve everyone's lives at the moment?
U2 did a song, right? They did the song singing across the fucking rooftops that inspired by the Italians on their balcony.
Oh, really?
It feels like a million years ago now. That shit was cornball.
All the celebrities singing what was it? Imagine.
God.
Oh yeah.
Celebrities on Zoom.
Yeah.
Awful.
But I think we are a little bit too silly and a little bit too aware of how silly we are to have thought for even a second that we would have had anything interesting or useful to interject at that moment. So I think we were aware that writing songs that sound like Ozzy Osbourne played by, I don't know, a guy who used to be in Weezer or something, and being as dumb as we can be, like we were just like, I'm not sure this makes sense at the moment.
Yeah, it was a weird back and forth between that, because on the one hand you go like, this is what's important to us, and I think actually once we kind of maybe stopped thinking about the relationship of the music we were making to the outside world, like once it just became just worrying about it internally, that's when it maybe kind of was able to kind of pick up speed again. And that really informed, I think, the album we ended up making, because there were no like preconceived ideas about like, we got to think about the goat and what people would expect from that and stuff. Yeah, it just became a very much our internal little bubble, and just writing songs and recording them for fun, and having that be the like first and foremost thing that we were concerned with, which is nice. It's kind of like it's like a weird, listening to the album now, it's like this weird postcard to ourselves, like from that period.
So do you think it kind of met the cliche term of the difficult second album, or did it kind of come pretty similar to you, other than obviously the COVID thing that was going on?
It's pretty hard to unravel from that, I think.
I think all albums are fucking difficult, actually, never mind the second one. Like they are, certainly for us anyway. I don't know. I mean, it's incredibly rewarding, I guess, ultimately, but it's fucking long-winded, man. I mean, yeah, I like it takes so long. I don't think we've ever found it particularly easy. We've done 3 EPs and now 2 albums. I think we're all really proud of it as a body of work, but it's kind of long. I guess
it's long.
Having COVID and all that stuff in the middle of it definitely intensified it. But I guess if there was any silver lining, again, like it's probably that everyone was, certainly all of the bands, other creatives were kind of hit with the same fucking terrible stick at the same time. It wasn't like we were, I guess there was a sense of, maybe a vague sense of camaraderie or something amongst people who had previously been trying to do that kind of stuff, I guess. And as Jock says, I think we're really lucky that we didn't have an album or anything out right at that point, because I think that would have been fucking terrible.
I think the fact that it was a difficult time for everyone massively overshadowed any sense of our difficult second album. I think like if we'd been writing and recording our second album whilst keeping half an eye on what was going on in terms of our peers and in terms of all that stuff, that would have maybe made us second guess stuff more. Does that make sense? Like, but because everything was fucked, it was like, well, who cares about a second album anyway? Like,
the whole world's on fire.
Exactly. Yeah. I felt like it didn't matter. Like, so it helped alleviate any sense of like navel gazing, or kind of, the world's waiting for a second album, because the world was waiting for a fucking cure. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, it really didn't matter. So again, almost to a detrimental point in some respects, because it does make you question the importance of stuff. But like, I think it did help in some ways alleviate that sense of importance on the second album.
We also changed labels too, which took all the kind of pressure off this second one needs to perform in a way that the first one didn't, or people are looking at it in the way that comparing it in any way to the first one. Only really fans and people who like our music are going to compare it to the old material, but no one's looking at it from the reason they call it a difficult second album is in terms of like sales and impact and stuff. We don't really have any of those pressures in that regard anymore. We're just sort of like, we got to make the album we wanted to, and it doesn't feel, other than the world events surrounding it, it doesn't really feel difficult in that regard. For me anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, you've talked about the label change there. What made you want to move over to Rude Records from...
Cash money, baby. Needed more spondoolies. No. Just kidding. Musicians don't make money.
They are really intelligent. We've really been, but actually, I don't know. It's kind of lame to sort of celebrate your label or talk positively of them as a band. It would be way cooler to be like snarky about them. But I have to say, they've been really, really good. I always find it very glamorous that they're based in Milan.
Yeah, it's Rude Records who are putting the album out. Sorry, I was just interjecting with the name. Sorry, continue, Bill.
Well, Rude Records who are putting the album out. Yeah, I really liked that they were based in Milan. They were kind of approaching it from a slightly different angle, and they seem to really get the band and be fans in some capacity, I guess. And I just think it's good to change things up sometimes, man. Yeah. How about you, Jock?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. It's just like there's a lot of like logistics of being in a band. Again, one of the cool things about cool's a really wrong word to use, but one of the kind of positives of the way we recorded the album and the time in which we did it is we were in this little bubble with the three of us just sending music to each other, and there wasn't really much of an infrastructure around the band at that point. It was just us, and that was really cool. And yeah, I guess one of the things about being in a kind of working band, if you will, a band that tours and a band that puts out albums and stuff, unless you're doing it completely yourselves, is you have that infrastructure, and that changes, and that kind of and it has several times over the course of this band's lifetime. So yeah, we were sort of that change happening as well was another one of the things that kind of left us just to our own devices, really. Yeah, we didn't have there was no one asking to hear stuff. There was no one, and Rude were amazing. Like, we basically just handed in an album at the end, and we're like, there you go, that's the album. And they were like, yeah, they were into it. It was really nice, man.
So what made you want to move to them from Spinefarm? Did your deal with Spinefarm end, or was it just...
Yeah, a bit of that. Yeah, it was just kind of like, again, just one of those, like, we did the album, came to the end of the term, and yeah, we kind of like back and forth over a few things, and decided that the best thing for everyone involved was to move on. But we nothing but love for those guys. They were great, really helpful, and we have lots of good memories of working with them.
Yeah, we had a really lovely relationship with Dante, who works there, who's a very cool guy, I think, in terms of, he's got such a knowledge and passion for heavy music. I think he was at Kerrang in like the fucking 80s with hair like this big. There's a video of him online somewhere interviewing, who is it, Jot? That really
I think it's Whitesnake.
Yeah, Whitesnake.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book about Motley Crue. We really loved working with him. And they had such an amazing roster of bands. I think it's just useful sometimes to have a change of personnel, a change of scenery.
Yeah, it can be really nice. Like, it helps like inject just a sense of newness. Like, especially when coming out of the period we'd been in, where it was just us, to be able to give this over to a new team of people who are very enthusiastic and wanted to like hit the ground running. I think it was good for us, because we were sort of maybe not burnt out, but we'd sort of, when you finish an album, sometimes you're very, very close to it, and having someone else pick up and be able to run with it is great.
I guess kind of like fresh eyes on what Puppy is and what Puppy can do.
Yeah, 100%.
So with the artwork and the kind of aesthetics that kind of surrounding Pure Evil, obviously you've got the album cover, which is a castle, and the video is like, you've got like medieval themes and stuff. Talk to me about that. Why have you gone with that kind of aesthetic for the record?
We're just really into LARPing. We get together once or twice a week with the action role play swords, and we have little battles.
Beat the shit out of each other.
Beat the shit out of each other in pretend. I think that kind of iconography, it's an interesting one, because it's used in metal quite a lot traditionally. There are lots of bands that kind of draw on that, and that the sense of there being some kind of mythological, medieval, pagan narrative fed into whatever it might be. But I think what we particularly liked about that is that it's also quite childish. You know, it's like, you know, toy castles and Dungeons and Dragons and knights on horseback and stuff like that. It's kind of, it's something really kind of juvenile about that, but then it can also be quite sinister, and it also feeds into this quite dark iconography as well. And I think that's a little bit of that's kind of a nice intersection with Puppy as a band and what we're about, I guess. And
I think it represents our relationship to a lot of like heavier music, especially our kind of relationship to like classic rock and stuff. We're all like big fans of all that stuff. But I think as people, we find it quite difficult to like throw ourselves into it in that way. You know, we're not walking around wearing like biker jackets and aviators and shit like that. Like, but we enjoy it in a kind of spectacle sense. And then so having this diorama of like this like toy gnarly castle is kind of, I guess, and this, you know, this is my interpretation, but this was all Billy's work, the artwork, but it sort of represents our relationship to it. Sorry, it's like this kind of slightly crude, stupid thing that, you know, when you zoom out, it's a dumb toy, but like it's actually got all this detail and this effort that's gone into it, and that kind of maybe represents how we feel about making the music we make. It's like acknowledging that a lot of the influences and stuff like that can be quite silly and quite childish, but there's also like a beauty in that, I think.
I think it's about there being some kind of handmade element of it, or some slightly naive element to something, but which kind of still perseveres or tries in spite of its limitations. And that's definitely, I think, what Puppy is about a bit. I think, you know, we all love heavy music, but we've always felt slightly like outsiders, I guess, in that we're not tough, cool guys. And we're not technically...
Speak for yourself, Bill.
Yeah. Except for Jock.
Yeah.
Me and Will, we've never felt like tough, cool guys. But I guess everything we've done, in a sense, more or less, we've tried to root in some way or another, like in terms of videos and artwork, and even merch and stuff like that. Any visual manifestation of the band is, to kind of reflect that dynamic a little bit, as being kind of, punching up is a phrase that Will always uses. Like, we think it's important that we always seem to be punching up and kind of trying to attain something that is maybe slightly impossible for a band of unlimited abilities.
Yeah, I think tabletop gaming and video gaming are great metaphors for like how our relationship with the fantasy element of metal is. Like, you know, there are bands like Manowar who literally look like men of war from another time, you know, and they're sort of embodying this sort of like crazy metal Viking persona, as a lot of heavy metal bands do. And sort of for us, it's like more on the level of like a tabletop gaming. Sorry, DIY is very kind of smaller and personal. It's cool.
With a Games Workshop version of Manowar.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think Bolt Thrower, the Games Workshop version of Manowar, to be fair. But yeah. No, that's totally true. I think also it's funny, we've always been asked about the kind of like some of the disparate influences in our sound, and how we were always trying to draw a line between some of the kind of slightly more like naive, if you will, indie rock kind of stuff like Pavement and kind of like slackery kind of 90s bands and stuff like that, to like heavier music. But I think that, I think naivety, that word, I think, is one of the things that for me makes the link. Yeah, the idea of there is a kind of like slightly childish naivety in trying to make like music that transports you to a sort of like medieval realm of battle. Like it's pretty dumb, but also really fun, and trying to kind of like appropriate that vibe whilst also maybe addressing its childishness is something that we've always been interested in.
Yeah.
And I think, actually, interestingly, all metal bands, and not that we are necessarily a metal band, but all bands that make work in that world, I think they all have to find their own way of making sense on their own terms, at least within that narrative. You're wearing a Slipknot shirt, right? And I guess they don't really fuck with medieval iconography and stuff like that, but they've definitely carved out a very specific aesthetic, which, without going into mythology or medieval stuff or Vikings or any of that stuff, kind of does their own version of that, which is, I don't know, more industrial, but it's still kind of about like intensity and violence and passion and all those things. And I think, you even if you are Slipknot or whoever, you kind of still have to find your kind of resting place within that tableau or whatever.
guess you guys have kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of aspect to, some of the metal aspects. You're talking about the tabletop games and stuff like that. And then, your logo on a few records and stuff is kind of like the typical thrash kind of band logo, and even like the album title, Pure Evil. Like, it's just kind of like there's so many metal bands that take themselves arguably way too seriously. Whereas kind of you guys kind of like, you're not like making fun of it, but you're just kind of like say kind of like a tongue-in-cheek aspect to it.
Yeah, 100%. I think we've always, like, I remember, I'd say like one of the turning points in the band in terms of developing a bit more of a sound and developing a bit more maybe interest outside of the three of us was Entombed, which is a song off our second EP, which ended up on our debut album. So we recorded it for the GOAT. And doing that, like, it's got like this really dumb, over the top nu metal riff. And like, it made us laugh. Like when we first played it, it was like, it was just so, it was like, that was our first reaction. I think like there's quite a lot for the heavier moments, certainly like in the early days. Yeah, we'd find it kind of funny. Like we'd be playing it seriously. Like, we would never write like joke lyrics or like make music that was intentionally funny or anything like that. But like to us, it just kind of is like in a great way, like in a really kind of like, it felt like a nice release. So yeah, I think there's definitely like an element of like playfulness, I guess, like fun with that.
I think we still, in an odd way, we do take that very seriously. We take our not taking it seriously incredibly seriously somehow. Like it definitely occupies a lot of our time and our thoughts and our conversation with between each other. But I don't know, and it's weird because I think we all really love bands and acts who are incredibly serious. Like actually, a lot of our favorite music is probably from people who just don't even have a sense of humor, or certainly not when it comes to the work they're making. So it's not like we're unable to experience that. I don't know whether it's just a personal thing, whether we feel that the three of us together can't. I don't know. I think that's
can't dress up like Manowar.
Yeah, I'm trying. Maybe
Billy keeps turning up to rehearsal just wearing belts, and we're like, Billy, come on.
Or GWAR.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We know it's you under that hat, Bill.
Yeah.
No, I think you're totally right, though. I think you're totally right, Bill. I think it's our relationship to it, and that's, if there's any identity to Puppy, it's that. It's finding our own little like place in that and how we feel comfortable doing it. And that's that massively informs, I think, the music we end up making and the way we approach it.
Like I say, you guys take not being seriously, but you guys do great work on the side of it. Like recently you did that charity raffle for Ukrainian relief.
Yes, we did.
Raised a little over £750, which is fantastic. Congrats.
Oh, thanks, man.
When did the kind of idea of that come together? How did it all come to be to put that together?
Well, we did a raffle for the Black Lives Matter protests over lockdown, actually, which was probably on some, I mean, it was obviously a really good cause, but probably it is some manifestation of our own whatever existential crisis we as a band were having at that point, and whatever guilt builds up in like, shit, we're spending all our time talking about fucking Manowar and wearing belts and shit. And actually there's quite a lot of way more important things happening. And I don't know, I mean, we're not a particularly big band, sadly. And we're kind of, we exist and we're there. And it's just, we were interested at that point maybe in seeing whether we could kind of intersect in that discussion in any useful way at all. With the little tiny platform that we do have, can maybe be put to use in more useful ways occasionally. And I think that was in that spirit that we did that Ukraine thing as well.
What do you think is the most ridiculous metal band then?
I feel Will would have really good answers for this.
Good question.
GWAR. Probably GWAR. Yeah, that's my personal favorite.
Don't they bring
maybe
your
Creed?
Creed?
Yeah.
Arms wide open.
Yeah. I think we find that it's the more sincere side of metal that I think is funny.
Right.
Because GWAR know exactly what they're doing. GWAR are being ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But when someone's like, here's one from the heart, that's when it's funny.
I think so. Well, we must have seen some kind of funny bands before. I'm sure we've watched things actually like laughing. I don't know. Yeah, maybe we
played it. And I don't remember the band's name, so it won't offend anyone, hopefully, unless me not remembering their name offends them. But we played South by Southwest in 2019, and at our showcase there was a band immediately after us who dressed a bit like a sort of a kind of Poundland Slipknot. It was like
They're a bit
they
like
were wearing
they were like mushroom heads, but with really bad homemade costumes that they'd potentially bought on a whim immediately before the show, I reckon.
Yeah. And they did a version of Creep by Radiohead, but sort of even more brooding and intense than the original, to an audience of like 5 people, including us. And the singer was like, I think like pointing like gun fingers at his head and slitting his own throat and stuff like that, and that was pretty funny.
We're taking them on tour with us next month.
We do often listen to the Disturbed cover of The Sound of Sadness.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That inspired the new album.
Disturbed might be my most ridiculous metal band.
Yeah, they're an interesting one, aren't they? Because a band like Disturbed would get kind of does mad stuff, and they would. I think to a lot of people, you might mention them in the same breath as like System of a Down, but like System of a Down, who are clearly quite silly in their own way, but there's like a self-awareness, I think, on some level. And it's a band like Disturbed. There's just no self-awareness. They just don't give a fuck. They're just like, this is like everything. And like credit to them, I guess. It's important that people get passionate in that way. But it's like, yeah.
So you guys have got a tour coming up. I think that was the one that was scheduled from December. Is that right?
Yeah.
At these dates, your first show's non-social distance since COVID happened.
We did 3 gigs
since 2019.
Yeah.
We actually about a week of this tour was supposed to happen before Christmas, right? And everyone had COVID basically.
Yeah, it was just as Omicron, I think, was kicking off. So, but we got the number of cancelled shows and rescheduled stuff by that point was just, we were just sort of used to it. So we didn't really we were just like, is what it is. But yeah, now everything's kind of calmed down a bit. So yeah, it should be good.
Well, I bet you guys are excited because
this guy interviewing us literally has COVID right now.
Sorry, Zach. Yeah,
okay.
It's all over and done with now.
Yeah. Doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
No, I think we're all really excited. Actually, I think it's funny on that album cycle of the Goat, we were touring a lot, and we did like some. I mean, it's always fun, and it's so good to play like regularly and get tight and kind of get closer between the three of us as well. I guess arguably too close. But I think, got to a point maybe after that where we were maybe not burnt out. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but we did do back-to-back things that we were probably like, Jesus Christ, I'm not sure how much touring we could do at the moment. And actually, I think now with that time that's elapsed in between and with a new album under our belt, as they say, I think we're all probably in a slightly different headspace about it. And I'm excited. I'm excited just to play drums, really. I've barely done that, really.
Totally. Yeah, we haven't really rehearsed for like over a year.
Oh, you better get on that.
Got to start cracking.
We are heavily considering the idea of hiring session musicians to play everything, and we'll just sort of sit on the side of the stage and just hang out, vibe.
It'll be better for everyone.
If you know anyone, Zach, that is good at anything really, please maybe put them in touch.
Well, I'd suggest getting the next album in advance, using it on holograms, so it looks like you're playing. Just put a backing track.
That's genius.
No one will know.
I was thinking what would be there's a power play, right? You just go out there, you just play the album, you just put it on and you kind of hang out. You just sort of sit there. So it's like a listening party, but you're just on stage while it's going on, maybe just kind of hanging out, talking. We wouldn't have to stare everyone out. Yeah.
That's what Kanye did, right? That's he just rented a stadium and fucking played his album while standing on a hill. It was pretty sick.
Yeah.
We should do that.
It worked for Kanye.
Yeah. The man with everything right in his life.
We need a hill.
That's the one thing we're missing. We could easily rent a stadium. We just don't have a hill to put in the middle. So
that's the problem. Yeah.
Just make one. Just get some paper mache.
Yeah, Bill, get on it.
I did actually spend weeks last summer making artificial rocks to use as stage dressing for those.
Oh yeah.
And like by the end of it, like this long process, they were actually maybe only slightly less heavy than actual rocks.
Yeah.
They're in my garden now.
Gone out and got some rocks.
And they all fell apart. Like we had these 3 shows last year at Signature Brewery, and it was like 3 back-to-back nights we did there. Again, they were our first shows in like a year and a half, maybe middle of 2021. And Bill was like, right, let's pull out all the stops. Like, I'm going to make these artificial rocks. So he turned up in a cab with what looked kind of like manure, right? Like it was like
I'd say it looked like elephant dung.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looked like. And then literally, like, they were so heavy. Like, and every time we put one down, it would just like fall apart, and then it would be all this exposed chicken wire.
Yeah.
They were the exact consistency and weight of rocks.
How long did it take to make?
Just got rocks.
It was
months.
The bit of planning. No, it was like a couple of afternoons in my garden. I should have just done papier-mâché, but I looked it up online, this process. Maybe but that wasn't for touring or playing live shows. It was probably for someone who was actually just trying to make rocks.
They weren't getting transported around London in the back of Ubers.
Yeah, I think papier-mâché might be a shout though, actually. I just don't know how I can be bothered to do that. You've got to paint them then as well.
It's long.
It's effort. Just go to a DIY store, get loads of like rocks and gravel, call the Pure Gravel Tour.
Pure Gravel.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah,
Brian,
just pour it all over the stage before sound check, and then just leave.
Yeah.
Just have these venues just like sort of shingle everywhere.
Brian Wilson used to insist that there was sand in the studio when he was making Smile, right? So that he could have his feet in the sand. But it would be like that, but with gravel. And I have to say, the sound of footsteps on gravel is a really satisfying noise. It's a lovely sound.
It is nice.
Yeah.
And you're a rock band, so...
Hey!
Yeah.
It all makes sense.
It's coming together now, Zach.
Yeah. What else have you guys got planned for the rest of the year so far that you can talk about? I imagine there's some things that you've got to keep pushing about.
I wish there was, Zach, but
Trying to big you up here, come on.
We're pushing it. What are we doing festival wise? We're doing 2000 Trees Festival. We're doing
Outbreak.
Yeah, that'll be really fun. Bigfoot Festival.
Yeah.
They're all like festivals that I think we would want to go to anyway. Like Outbreak, I think, it's going to be amazing. Yeah, all of them, in fact. So yeah, it'll be a fun summer, and then who knows really? Like, hopefully get some more stuff in at the end of the year, and we're just excited to play again at all, but also like Bill said, having a bunch of new songs to play to people. Like, I think we've been doing roughly the same set for like almost like a year, the last year of touring for the band. So it'll be fun, and I think for everyone who comes to the shows, it'll be nice to hear the new stuff.
Exactly, man. And I think being on the road right after the albums come out will be quite a nice way to interact with people who are listening to it, and hopefully don't hate it.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. That's all you can hope for, really.
Cool. Well, before I let you guys go, any final words, anything you want to plug? What's your favourite Manowar album?
I was listening to Manowar today, actually, on the way to football, which obviously lost 8-2. But yeah, Defender, the thing that Orson Welles does the voiceover for.
Oh, no, to get you hyped up for football.
Yeah, I made a playlist and that was the first song on it. It's very good. That is very good. I think, I don't know how the fuck they got Orson Welles and how much they must have paid him or what their budget even was. I wonder, maybe he was a fan. It's such a weird crossover.
I think at that
period.
point he was just doing anything, wasn't he? He was doing, he was doing like frozen peas and shit at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, a Frozen Peas advert is different to a fucking Manowar album. Like,
well, he also famously, I think his last performance was in the animated Transformers film.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, hang on now! Don't shit on that. That was a that's a far cry from Frozen
Megatron.
Peas. That's a fucking. He's a Unicron. He's the
Unicron.
A whole planet.
Mm.
I mean, it's not Citizen Kane, but it's still pretty good.
His finest work since The Third Man. Transformers animated film.
The Autobots.
Yeah. I think he did another song with Manowar. I think they had a bit of a tight relationship. He was on another album.
Imagine hanging out drinking with Manowar and Orson Welles.
There's a photo of them somewhere, and they are all really buff and topless with their like bullet belts, and he's sort of sat in the middle of them, so fat, being like in front of the microphone.
They got Christopher Lee too, right? Like they usually get like some epic thesp to do a voiceover on one of their albums.
Has Brian Blessed done any metal stuff?
Yeah, I'm sure
he must have, right?
He sounds like someone who would do something like that.
100. If not,
I think we should. That would be fucking sick, man.
We should get him to record like a live intro.
An intro about like a sort of telling like a story about like a sort of origin story.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
Bobby out here.
Just do it. Just do an impression of Brian Blessed for the intro of the album.
Fair play. Yeah, I'll just do that.
I still want to get David Hayter through Cameo to do a thing for us.
That's the real dream. He can be our Orson Welles.
That's what the song could be called. You could be my Orson Welles. Writes itself.
Yeah, writes itself.
Well, like I said, I'll let you go. Anything else you want to say, plug, anything like that?
Pure Evil out May 6th, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Tour Evil, May 14th. Come see us play the songs worse than they sound on the album.
Well, we're playing a hell of a load of cities in the UK.
And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider supporting the podcast in any way that you can. We have a Patreon where you can get access to each episode a week early, along with some other perks, a merch store, a Discord community, or you can leave a review wherever you're listening to this. You can also follow me on social media or subscribe to the newsletter where I'll send out each episode to you via email, along with regular playlists. All of this can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again for listening, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.